Hello, everyone. This is Superintendent Kevin Kunz. By now, you all are aware of the fact that we have put a draft copy of our 2021 school district reopening plan on the school district website. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to try to clarify as many things as possible in that particular document and hopefully head off as many questions as I can by providing you with a little insight on how we ultimately arrived where we have with this particular plan. So with that said, I'm going to kind of split this up into two different parts. The first part is going to kind of be a little bit of a background and kind of more of the why we arrived with the type of plan that we have. And then the second part is going to dive a little bit more into the specifics of some different operations that will take place in the school building once we get everybody back here on August 19th. Now, this particular video and any subsequent video are not scripted, so I'm going to go ahead and apologize ahead of time in the event that I stumble through some different things. I'm going to try my best to keep it as smooth as possible, so just bear with me as best you can as we get into this thing. So to kind of get things started here, the plan itself starts off with a letter to the school district community. More than anything, we just wanted to take an opportunity to thank everyone for their patience as we've tried to navigate through this process, and also just try to hopefully get everybody to understand that we've tried to listen as best we can to as many different sources or entities as possible as we've come up with this plan. And we certainly understand that everybody has their own opinions about what they think should or shouldn't happen. Try to do our best to follow the facts to lead us to where we are right now. With that said, I have no doubt that this plan is going to have to adapt and change, not only throughout the school year, but potentially in the weeks leading up to the start of the school year. So again, we appreciate your patience, and we will try to communicate as best we can with everyone if there happens to be changes that come up. So as we move forward here a little bit, we have incorporated a table of contents into this document. So in the event that you're not necessarily interested in reading through everything in the document, if you come to the table of contents, all of these particular headings are linked to a specific part of the document. So you can simply click on one of those links and it will take you directly to that particular area of the document. So as we got into kind of starting our planning process way back in the spring, and then eventually into the summer, there were a number of different questions that we posed that we thought were of significance as we tried to put together this plan. So this section of the document kind of runs through the different things that we considered or the different questions we asked ourselves as we tried to put this plan together. As far as the work we've done, like I said, a lot of this goes back to even last spring before the last school year was over. We started talking internally and with some different groups about what fall could potentially look like. Even at this point, there's still a lot of question marks as to what's going to happen once we attempt to get everybody back into the building. But I think at the very least, we have a pretty decent idea of where we want to go and how we want to try to handle things moving forward. So as you can see, we have consulted with numerous healthcare entities, the South Dakota Department of Ed, the Activities Association. We even went so far as to put together our own local committees and task force to try to help navigate through this particular situation. Likewise, as I said from the beginning, we've tried our best to listen to as many different people as possible when it comes to putting this plan together. We were fortunate enough that we had 136 families that responded to our back to school survey, which provided us with a lot of extra data and information to kind of help guide this process. Likewise, we had 43 staff members that responded to their own specific back to school survey. And all of those numbers don't even take into consideration the numerous emails and phone calls that I received over the course of the past weeks and months from stakeholders regarding our return to school this fall. So the next section here just kind of outlines some of the key responses to some of the survey information we sent out to both families and staff members. I won't spend a whole lot of time going through that. That just kind of gives you a layout of what age students the parents that responded to the survey had. And as you can see there, we got a pretty decent distribution or representation of all grade levels in those responses. This was kind of a key question in the survey for families as far as if we felt like it was safe to come back to in-person instruction right away in the fall and it didn't look like things were trending upward in our community. Would you be willing to send your kid or kids to school for in-person instruction? And obviously the vast majority of the people were on board with that. And we certainly respect and understand that there were going to be people that maybe based on their specific family situation, we're not going to feel comfortable doing that. And, you know, we've explored different avenues for how we can still provide them with a quality education as we continue to navigate through this process. This particular chart gives you an idea of kind of everyone that responded to the survey, of what their comfort level was with you know, returning to school with in-person instruction should cases not be trending upward. So again, the majority of the people were either comfortable or somewhat indifferent as to whether or not we should be reopening the doors and going with in-person instruction this fall. As far as staff responses, kind of the same general question here. As you can see, an overwhelming majority would prefer to be back in the building for in-person instruction. As far as being back in the school, or at least having conversations about the type of instruction that we would be going with, again, you can see the overwhelming majority would prefer traditional in-person instruction. I don't think that in this particular situation or scenario, you're going to find a lot of people that disagree with the fact that the best thing for kids from an instructional standpoint is to be back in the building. Our goal with this particular document is just trying to figure out or plan for how we can make that work while also maintaining the safety of our student staff and families. So the South Dakota Department of Ed provided us with a document, and it is a working document, kind of outlining their assumptions and expectations for school as we get into the 2020 school year. This information listed here comes directly from their Starting Well 2020 document, and right here is a link to that particular document. So if you want to see specifically everything that document entails, you're more than welcome to click on that particular link and read through that information. We also have some local guiding principles that we've looked at as far as some of the things locally we feel are of importance as we try to put this plan together. This is kind of in addition to what the Department of Ed and their Starting Well document has dictated for us already. So, you know, with that said, the Department of Ed has done their part to kind of get everybody pointed in the right direction. The Department of Health has provided a number of resources for school districts, and you know they're going to be working with us, kind of walking us through step by step what's going to happen when we start getting cases and some different things. But there are two specific documents from the Department of Health that we thought were of, you know, pretty significance, I guess what I'm trying to say is of importance, maybe would be a better way to phrase that, when it came to developing our own plan. So this document and the document that follows come directly from the Department of Health. And this is kind of where we came up with the idea to have our 3 different tiers to reopening into our instructional processes, green, yellow, and red. Now this is pretty general. from the Department of Health, but it really kind of helped point us in the right direction as far as what we want to try to do when formulating our own specific processes and protocols for getting kids back into the school building. So, like I said, these are pretty general. You can take a look at those if you want. We get a little bit more specific as we get a little bit further on into the document. This particular document kind of takes things a step further and starts outlining some hypothetical scenarios. And you can see how everything here is kind of color coded. So it gives you an idea of some of the things that could happen and how that would correspond to the particular tier of reopening or instruction we would happen to be in at that particular time. So again, pretty important in our processes and trying to figure out how we're going to plan for what we want to do this fall. So this kind of gives you a little better idea here of some of the specifics of what our local approach with the three tiers is going to be. Again, green, yellow, and red. In both green and yellow, we plan to be in the building for in-person instruction. In green, we're looking at a situation where we don't have any cases or confirmed cases in the building, but we still want to have some different strategies and processes in place that emphasize safety and some different things. As we get into yellow, yellow is one of those scenarios where we still want to be in the building, but now we're starting to see some cases pop up in the building, and we need to start considering how we can tighten things up a little bit and maybe have to start thinking a little bit outside of the box in terms of how we handle some of our protocols and procedures during the school day. So again, you can kind of look through those. It talks about some different examples of some things that we might put into place, some other considerations that we may look at. But overall, we wanted our goal with developing this plan to be to try to do whatever we can to keep kids in the building for in-person instruction as much as possible as we get into the school year. So once we start having cases pop up, we certainly understand that we have to maybe start thinking outside the box a little bit to figure out how we're going to get kids here and how we're going to maintain the integrity of our instructional approaches to keep things, moving as efficiently as possible, I guess you could say, throughout the school year. Obviously, if we get down to the point where we have a substantial number of cases in the building and or in the community, we're probably going to have to think about doing something a little bit differently and maybe getting everybody out of the building. Again, we want to try to avoid this potential scenario or situation as much as possible. And a lot of that comes from everybody trying to work together to make sure that we're on the same page and handling things appropriately so we are able to keep our doors to the building open as long as possible this fall. So that kind of gives you a general idea of where we are, how we've kind of arrived at our particular format for our plan as far as the different tiers. I will be putting another video out there for everyone in terms of, getting into kind of the specifics of screening, when you should or shouldn't send your kid to school, so on and so forth, and to kind of keep diving into this a little bit further. So thanks for listening to this particular part of the presentation. And like I said, there'll be another video kind of outlining the rest of this particular document.